Let's turn to page 37 and 38. There's lots of room. 39, there's lots of room for discussion on these pages. Let's look at fears regarding missionary life. Unconditional surrender. Well, I know many missionaries who weren't unconditionally surrendered to Jesus. You can even become a missionary and not really be totally surrendered to Jesus. At least you're a missionary that's not totally surrendered than someone who is not a missionary. No, I mean, it doesn't make you instantly sort of unconditionally surrendered. No, you still go through life, and there are probably things that come up every day where either you yield to Jesus or you yield to your flesh. Can we agree that that happens in your life in Bible school? It's the same thing. You say, I go to Bible school, everything's going to be just Jesus all the time. You probably found that you have lots of opportunities to be carnal here. You've had lots of opportunities to think nasty thoughts since you came here, haven't you? It's really not much different from before you came to Bible school. You're learning some things, but you still have to deal with. Well, going to the mission field is no different. You still got you to deal with. You're still going to be there when you go. Really? I thought I'm leaving myself at home. No. Loss of personal freedom. You're not going to lose your personal freedom. You can still be lazy. You can be industrious. You can read or not read, you know. Now, we encourage everybody. Every one of us need to encourage ourselves to do the right thing. Another fear is raising one's own support. That's why I brought this book with me. There are many books on this. I like this, written by Betty Barnett, endorsed by Youth with a Mission. It's called Friend Raising, Building a Missionary Support Team That Lasts. And I think it's not fundraising, it's friend raising. Basically, every one of you, I encourage you, if you're going to be a missionary, you need 10 friends. I'll help you get some. I'll stand up in church and help you get some right there. But you need 10 friends. If you have 10 friends, at least you can live and survive and live way better than the local people live and have some money left over. If you have 20 friends, it's better. But if you have 10 friends, maybe your church, maybe you have a home church, they'll do as good as 10 friends maybe to help you. You know, but that's an excellent book. And of course, you know, these books can make available for you so that if you decide to go onto missions, even for the 1-year service, you're going to learn so much about how these things operate. It's not as frightening as you think. So I just wanted to show you, for example, friend raising. Stop thinking money raising. You're not raising money, you're raising friends. Already you feel better. I can see some of your blood pressure went down when I said that. Everybody said, we're not raising money. We're raising friends. I see, that's a revelation, right? That was worth the whole day just to hear that. You have to raise friends. Get friends. And most friends want to hear from you once a month. Maybe a little postcard, a little email, a little something. Maybe once in a while even a 1-minute phone call would help. That's not, you know. Praise God. Inadequate financial support. I'm never going to have enough money. This comes from stereotypical missionaries that make others feel guilty. If I don't hear from you, I'm leaving the mission field. You see something? Let me say something about that. That may get you money. But you know, you lose much more than you gain. Because the grace of giving, the joy of giving is gone. So it may give you some money that month. I'm not saying it wouldn't work. I'm quitting now unless I hear from you. It might work. But the grace and joy is gone. So that's not what you do to friends, is it? That's not how you talk to friends. You don't put friends under a guilt trip. Say, I'm not raising money. I'm raising friends. And so you believe God, and there's not going to be anything inadequate in what God does. Fear of failure. Well, that's a fear in whatever you do. Being single forever. Yeah. There is no one opposite sex of you wherever you're going. Being single forever. Some people can have that concern, because I have a favorite story to counter that. A wonderful friend of mine, we haven't been close now for many years, but I can tell you how he met his wife. Let's call him Ernest. That wasn't quite his name, but that was almost Ernest. It's too hard to pronounce. Ernest was a missionary, actually from Sweden, and he was about in his 30s and not married. And so he was asked to go to Algeria. Now, I told you right now, Algeria is an unreached place, but it was certainly unreached when he went there. He was going there to run a radio station that was transmitting all over the world. So he wasn't really going to minister to Algerians, but he was just there to be a lone man with a few other men as a technician, as an engineer. So here he is well into his 30s. So you can see when he is considering accepting this challenge, that he is thinking, how will I ever meet a woman? I go there because in those days you went for 5 years. So, you know, so if you were 32, you're going to be 37 next time you have a shot at going to a meeting where somebody I might want to marry. Right? And so he went here. Now, how did he meet his wife? I know you like these romantic stories. So here he's living. Your picture right here, Algeria is over here, right? You see this? This is all, I mean, this is all Sahara Desert. It is actually a major road that goes through the Sahara Desert. Now, unbeknownst to him, there's another nice girl working here. I think she was a nurse. I forget what her name was. She's in Egypt. How many know that's like several thousand miles, a couple of thousand miles? This is a long way, you know, for a romance. They don't have email in these days. They don't even know one another. Anyhow, he has to travel because of his work. So he gets on a road passing all the camels and Bedouins and all that. And he's traveling along this road. And he comes through the Sahara Desert, hits this part of Egypt where this lovely nurse is working. Now, she also has to do a trip. She's going down this desert road. And you know what happens? She has a flat tire. How many know the Lord can give a girl a flat tire just for you? So there's not a lot of people that you meet. So he's traveling here. He's coming towards the end of his journey, going through the Sahara Desert to where he's going to Cairo, wherever he was going to. I forget where it was. And he sees this woman with a flat tire. And he stops. So how many know what happened? I'll tell you the rest. So my point is this. The Lord can always flatten a tire for you when you're in the will of God, and they lived happily ever after. So wouldn't you rather be in the will of God with no hope of ever seeing a female? And then God setting you on a trip on a road? Can you imagine if he had not been in the will of God? What if he hadn't gone for these considerations, saying, I need to get married first? Well then, when the flat tire happened, he wouldn't have been there. But now when the flat tire occurred, he was there. Glory be to God forevermore. And she was a beautiful girl. It wasn't like, well, you know, he was so desperate he'll take anybody with a flat tire. No, it was like the last bus is leaving the station and I'm getting on it. You know, not that I'm comparing women with a bus, but anyhow. So in other words, you know, God can cause you to meet people everywhere. Amen. Qualifications for missionary service. Physical qualifications. You know, you're healthy. We don't want to have you stuck in a hospital somewhere. Academic qualifications. You should at least have high school. You should be having Bible school. You should have some training so you understand. I think we understand that. Go to the next page, 38. Psychological qualifications. Let's discuss these in detail. Emotional stability. You know, if you're emotionally up and down, you're probably not going to be too successful in anything you do in Canada or the U.S., and probably the same thing will happen wherever you're going. It's no difference. Basically, where you're from, things are the same as where you're going. If you're a person who's fairly, you know, equal, kind of a even keel person, then you're going to do better where you are now, and you're going to do better where you're going. How many understand that? But if you're kind of emotionally upset all the time, then that's not going to help you other place. Adaptability. You can imagine what that means. Just be a little adaptable. You know, we don't have to have every second sentence, well, in the United States, we do it this way. Well, in Canada, we do it this way. You feel like saying, well, go back. If that's all you want to know, what you did. People do things different. They cook in different styles. They do different things. A sense of humor always helps. I know you got that. A spirit of cooperation, wanting to learn, wanting to cooperate, willingness to follow orders and directives. You know, sometimes you're put in a situation where you're not the leader of it. You're a part of a team, and so you can follow direction. Ability to endure hardship. I don't know why she put that there, but okay. There's hardship anywhere. You can go through hardship right where you are. Patience and perseverance. Certainly, you know, you may want to learn a little bit of another language. You may want to pick some things up. It takes some patience. And not having a superiority complex. Don't always think that things are better where you come from. You know, this is a classic mistake missionaries make. You know, I think of one missionary who gave her mink coat to a little village lady. Well, what is she going to do with the mink coat? That is the most stupid thing I've ever heard. How superior can you be? People have different values. You know, I remember kind of a wealthy North American lady, but not very smart. She was in a Guatemalan church, and a little village woman came in and she had no shoes on. So she takes off her high heel, you know, these high heels, and goes to give them to her, then testifies how great that was. Oh, God moved it. Well, what's that little Guatemalan woman going to do with her high heel shoes? You know what she did? She put them in a bag and says, I don't know what these is for. You can't climb the mountains with these. You can't. What is that for? That shows a superiority complex. In other words, you assume that whatever you have, everybody wants. Well, you feel like saying, you ain't that hot. Everybody doesn't want what you have. Give people some credibility. Treat people with respect. And to give a pair of high-heeled shoes to a woman who could never wear high-heeled shoes because they're just not conducive, how's that going to help her? Or it's going to make you feel like, oh, they're my favorite high-heeled shoes I gave away. Oh, give me a break. I don't want to hear it. Let's help people where they are at. Are you hearing me? Let's help people in a real way. Give them your sneakers. That'd be good. Without no racial prejudice. We talked about that. Spiritual qualifications. Some of them are kind of self-explanatory. I don't need to go over them again. And I would say the last one, current fruitfulness in Christian service. In other words, be active, be doing something now. Because I tell you, getting on an airplane going to another country is not going to make you zealous by your land. It's not a spiritual experience that occurs between a JFK airport in New York and Lagos, Nigeria. There's nothing that happens on that trip that suddenly makes you like on fire for Jesus, can't wait to win people, can't wait to get involved in ministry. Nothing happens. You're going to have some food, you're going to watch a couple of movies, and before you know it, you'll be in Africa. And you'll get off, and you won't be any different. So in other words, if you're zealous now, if you're plotting and strategizing now how to reach people for Jesus, you'll be the same when you arrive, because there's only one person you're bringing with you, and that's you. Yeah, well, Jesus lives in you, I understand, but you're still the same thing. All right, turn to the next page. I'm actually going to finish this course. Obstacles to answering the missionary call. Have you heard me tell stories how I used to sell postcards to make a nickel for missions? Do you hear me tell that story? Sometimes when I raise an offering, I say I started giving nickels, but I never told you what was on the postcard. Remember, I tell a story sometimes when I raise an offering. I said I started, and I was 15 or something. I said I heard this missionary from Japan. He's talking about the need to spread the gospel in Japan. And so I took on a hobby of selling postcards. Remember, have you heard me say that? And I said I bought them for 5 cents, sold them for 10 cents. And every nickel I profited, I saved in a bag, and I used it to support this missionary in Japan. How many have heard the story at all? You've heard me say that. Well, I never told you what was on the postcards. It's just too much explanation. And I don't want to explain the postcard. You may have thought it was a nice panoramic postcard, but it was actually a poem on the postcard. I would sell this to born-again Christians. It was a poem, and I forget the poem now, that gave this person who wanted to go to the mission field, but he had 10 excuses. Throughout 10 years of his life, every year he made up a different excuse, and finally he ended up not going at all. This was the postcard I was selling. So you see what I'm saying? So it was a nice poem with the little flowers on the side, and then it was, I think it was called 10 10 prospective missionaries. And it was all of, I know it was 10 prospective missionaries, and they had 10 different excuses in this poem. So yeah, I was full of guilt and condemnation. But anyhow, it was sadly true, some of it. And so I think when I saw this page here, page 39, I thought of my postcard that I was selling. Everywhere I found Christians, I was selling this postcard. And I say it's for missions. And that's how I made my nickels, you see. And so anyhow, what are some of the obstacles? What are some of the excuses? Well, advancing education. In other words, you say, I need to get more education, more training. Where do you draw the line? You know, I tell the story of Hudson Taylor. How many have heard of Hudson Taylor, famous founder of China Inland Mission? Well, he wanted missionaries, and he contacted his one of the foremost missions statesmen 100 years ago, a little bit more than 100 years ago now, was Frederick Franson. Traveled all over the United States, raised up missionaries, helped A.B. Simpson establish the missions department of the Missionary Alliance Church. Frederick Franson, I don't want to brag on the Swedish people, but he was a Swedish person, so he's well known over. He was in Germany and Sweden and Norway, and he was but mainly in America, raising up missionaries. He raised up 300 full-time missionaries. And in those days, when you raised up a missionary, they didn't come home on a plane, a year later. They were there 10, 15, 20 years. Most of them died once they had gone. So he did quite a job recruiting missionaries. So when Hudson Taylor said to Frederick Franson, help me find missionaries. So he sent his first batch, I don't know if it was 20 missionaries or so, to China. And Hudson Taylor was very angry. He said, what kind of missionaries have you sent me? These are useless. They don't have enough education. They don't have their bachelor's degree like they should have. He was really upset. But, when Hudson Taylor saw, the story goes, when he saw the dedication of these missionaries, a year later he wrote back and said, send me as many as you possibly can of this type, because this is the type that gets the job done. And those are the types we need even today. So, thinking that you need too much education or training can be a hindrance. Financial debt. Of course, that usually goes with advancing your education. The more you do, you get more in debt you get. So having debt. Put on the line the rat race. Love and marriage can be another obstacle. Love and marriage. No, that can be an obstacle. No, you could marry a person who is not interested in the same cause you are. So that could be real hell. What if you were supposed to go and live in Africa and head up a Bible school there, but the one you married wants to be home with mama all the time? Could that be a problem? Could that be a difficulty? Yes, so that's what I'm saying. I'm speaking to all the singles, all the married ones. Thank God you're married and married right. Praise God. But those of you who are single, think about that. When you decide who you're going to marry, don't just look on the outside, look outside and inside. Love and marriage can hinder people from fulfilling their call. And you know what? You're all going to get old and wrinkled anyhow one day. So, just do the right thing. And do what's going to bring satisfaction to your heart. Opposition from parents. It's always parents thinking, oh, where's my little angel going? You will notice every year in September when we have our commissioning service, as soon as the service is done, I exit off the platform. I don't want to meet any of the parents afterwards, because they could say, well, I feel too much. What is Pastor Peter doing to our Bible school graduates, sending them into harm's way? I know, but I don't have time to explain it all. So I greet all the parents before, so I can, just because I know I'm not sending you into harm's way, and I'm not sending you anyhow. Jesus is sending you. So talk to him about it. But sometimes there can be like this very great concern from parents. Amen. Hopefully this year I'll stay and talk to everybody afterwards. But sometimes I felt like, I better exit now. So I don't want to hear this. Where's my little angel going now? Health problems obviously is a very legitimate obstacle, especially if it's health problem to the degree that it could really hinder your work. A lack of direction. Well, nobody should have that hindrance in this room. The word of reconciliation is your direction. Lack of Bible training, well, you need to know and understand the gospel, understand the word. Lack of practical experience, that's for not being busy. Or attractive offers at home. You can see these: advancing education, financial debt, attractive offers from home. There's always something else that beckons you. There's always something else. And what I find, the most common excuse I find is this. The most common excuse by far, that I haven't done a scientific study, but what I would say is the most common excuse in our Bible school here over the years has been people who say, I really want to do this, but first I'm going to do that. And often they actually, sometimes they even credit God with the excuse. Says, well, I believe the Lord has impressed me to do this first. Now what I have found, I don't know a single exception. I don't know one exception to what I'm about to say. I haven't found one of them ever doing it. Now what I have found is that somebody worked for 5-10 years and then they went on a 3-week trip. But as far as going into full-time vocational ministry, I can't think of a single person who had that idea. Yeah, I want to go into ministry, but first I'm going to spend 2 years doing this and 1 year doing that. Of anybody ever actually doing it. I'm sure they had good intentions. I'm sure they meant well. I'm sure they had good reasons. Well, I'm going to work hard to pay off all my bills because my God is incompetent to help me, so I have to take care of it myself, which was a very responsible thing of them to do. But everything said and done would usually happen when they were spending the 2-3 years paying off their bills. They did pay off their bills, but in the process of paying off their bills, they accumulated new ones. They did pay off the old 1993 Honda, but also in that 3-year process, they got a brand new 2009 Kia. You see, so they did pay off their bills, but they got lots of new ones. Hello? Yeah, they accumulated lots of debts. And so, generally the ones who end up doing it are the ones who go for it. And say, I'm going to trust the Lord. So there's a balance. In other words, what makes a person do that? Well, obviously there's some kind of a inner propelling. Now again, I'm talking to single people. I don't want you married people to feel like you're not a part of the class, but I'm talking to single people here. But there are, of course, you cannot just leave debt behind you. I'm not saying that you leave debt behind you. Say you borrowed money from somebody. Perish the thought if it wasn't a bank, but it was a fellow brother or sister in the Lord, and you said you're going to pay it back. You can't go to that person and say, well, I'm going to Africa now. No, that would be no integrity. I wouldn't in no way recommend such a thing. No, but I'm saying once you make a decision, I am going to pursue this, then you trust Jesus. And Jesus is big enough that your friend will not be cheated. You will meet your obligations. You put your trust in Him. He will help you. He will show it. Jesus has a part to play in this, and He will show His hand in it. But our part is to be willing. Our part is to say, Jesus, not my will, your will be done. That's our part. But then Jesus, He has His part to play. There's some things that you can't orchestrate yourself. And Jesus will help you. But the problem very often is this, that many people say, well, if Jesus does this and this and this for me, then I'll consider this and this. And that never works. You base your decision on Jesus alone and say, this is what I want to pursue. Then if God somehow, when you pursue that, you make all the plans, and if the Lord puts a roadblock there, then of course, like Paul, he put the Spirit forbade him to go, so that can be something that happens. But it's not for us to forbade ourselves from going. So again, I appeal to you, if you're single and if you don't have a lot of commitments, I appeal to you, what are you going to do in this coming year? What action are you going to take, and what will you find yourself doing? Will your life be enriched by an international experience? Because it could be. And you'd be amazed how people will rally to your side. Some of you come from churches, not all of you, some of you come from churches. If you went home and told your church, your pastor, I want to go on a year missions, and I'm believing God to help me. Do you think our church could do anything to help us? You know what? You'd be surprised at the response you may get. You may get the whole thing taken care of right there. Some of you maybe couldn't do that, but some of you would get the whole thing taken care of right there. But if you don't have the inner propelling to even say that, then I don't know. You know, you got to have enough fire in you to say that. And you look at a person like William Carey, who is considered the father of modern missions. That's a good name to know. Everybody who's been to a missions class should know about William Carey. There's a good movie about his life. He went to India. By profession, he was a shoe cobbler. You know that you didn't always buy shoes in stores. Did you know that? That there was a time when you didn't buy shoes in stores. You didn't just go and buy the shoes. You actually went to a shoe cobbler who measured your foot and who cobbled a shoe together for you. Is this revelation to some? You thought, oh, we went to the shoe place. I thought you'd go to the mall. No, actually, you'd go and cobble the shoe together. And then when we started to sell shoes were mass produced, then you could still go to someone who fixed your shoes. I remember when I was a kid, if our shoes got bad, we'd fix them. Anybody remember that? We'd take them in and actually fix them. They would go through them and you put a new heel on. Once the heel was worn down, you knock the old one off and you just pound another one on. But now shoes are so cheap, nobody does that anymore. But shoes were more expensive, relatively speaking. So William Carey was a shoe cobbler, meaning he fixed shoes. He put new heels on and made shoes. So he certainly was not high as far as theological training goes. So can you imagine the obstacles he went through? First of all, the absolute ridicule. When he started to announce publicly and telling people, and the word got around that he was going to India, I mean, there was such a laughter, such gloating, such mockery. Officially, pastors and bishops got up in the pulpit and said, have you heard such a ridiculous thing? I know the word is out. Something very ridiculous is going on in our community. There's a man called William Carey, a shoe cobbler, not even a minister. He thinks he's going to go over and save India. What a ridiculous thought. Can you imagine the obstacle a person like that had? And you talk about having something inside of you that makes you do it. So there was open laughter, open mocking in churches. And he created a society, I think it was something like some society for the bringing the gospel. I forget the exact name of it. You can find it out in any Wikipedia. And he went. You know how long of a trip it was from England to India? He didn't go to Heathrow Airport in London and take a sleeping pill and wake up in New Delhi. It was a major trip. He had to travel all the way right down here. Look at this. This is a long trip by boat. How many know he was ready when he arrived? He's ready to get off the boat. You know, sometimes I'm ready to stay on the plane by the time we land, but he was ready. He's gone through this big trip and he arrives there. How many know you're not going back the next week? And then he brings his wife with him, and she turns out to be, I don't know whether she was crazy or just didn't want to be a missionary. Can you imagine? So it's complete hell for this guy. Then the friends back in England, do you understand? We didn't send emails. You didn't send letters. There was no postal service. So he has, I don't know what he had, 30 friends, 20 friends. I don't know how many. He had a few friends because the church wasn't supporting him, who had promised to support him. But you know how many know when he takes off in the boat, how many know that this conversation's going on? Bishops and pastors visiting the friends of William Carey says, are you really sure that's God? Who knows if he even got there? So how many know there's plenty of opportunity to talk to few supportive friends he's got out of the whole operation, which is exactly what happened. So he gets to India. By the time he gets there, well, he's not been there with his passion and fire to defend his cause. So other religious people, that's the best word I can use to describe them, they have been here working on the supporters, and he only had a few. He already has been ridiculed. So he's got a wife. Maybe he drove her crazy. I don't know. He sounds like the guy who could drive a woman crazy. Let's be fair to the woman. I don't want to put the blame on her. She may have just been a very nice lady. He said, you know, what did I ask? I didn't ask for I just wanted a nice life. I was married to a shoe cobbler. I know that people need shoes. It was a good business. I just want to raise my family. And I'm on a boat. I'm going over here. I don't speak the language. I don't know the food. I mean, maybe he drove her crazy. I don't know. Tell this to focus on the family. They never talk about William Carey. I don't know how he fits into the focus on the family here. But anyhow, we believe in focusing on the family, so don't get carried away now. All I'm saying to you, this is history, what I'm telling you. This is history. Can you imagine the kind of daunting opposition? Can you imagine the kind of passion he must have had in his heart? Can you imagine the kind of thing that he felt inside? He went over here. And I don't think he ever went back to England, if I remember right. Never went back. He died there eventually, translated the Bible, the whole Bible, into several Indian languages. Wow. The whole Bible. Imagine just, now there were some British people here because they had trading posts and there were some political presence. So he had some other British people and they were against him too because he was kind of messing up their thing. Because he was kind of trying to stop some of the customs of burning the young widows and that kind of thing. So he was kind of fighting for social justice, and he kind of interrupted the trade because a lot of the British people are here were just to make money. So now he has all these people whose language he doesn't speak, and he has the British people don't really like him, and the support base, he's trying to send letters home whenever the boat goes. The letter goes back here. He tries to fire up the troops and hope that there's some help, some finances coming. You know, this was quite an operation. Now, if any man had obstacles, he's called the father of modern missions. He had a lot of obstacles. Many of his family, his children died in India because he died there eventually himself. And but did a great work. Planted churches, and you're probably quite familiar with William Carey. He's part of India's history today. But that's how he started. So you talk about resistance, you talk about obstacles. These were incredible odds that these people did. They had a tremendous passion inside, or they would never have risen to the occasion to get this done. And so you really, whatever obstacles we may have in today's world, it seems kind of small, doesn't it? Seems kind of small in comparison with that. And yet today, the same thing that propelled William Carey, namely that people hadn't heard the gospel, he believed that people should hear the gospel, that still propels us today because there's other parts of the world just like that. For example, take Vietnam. Who knows how that country is going to open up really fully? It's kind of half open now, but you know, there's really nothing going on there. Somebody could become like the apostle of Vietnam. I don't know. Maybe there's a Vietnamese person. Or maybe it's going to take someone of a different culture. I don't know. I just know that every nation is going to hear the gospel. And every nation deserves it. And so, yeah, think about that. Anyhow, I think I'm done teaching. Finished with William Carey. I think that's a good way to finish this course, isn't it? And, yeah, I hope his wife is in heaven and we'll meet her and we can talk it over there. Anybody has any questions? We have about 5 minutes left. If anybody want to ask a question.